Good afternoon. I'm Salome Apkhazishvili. I'm an international student of communication at the University of Southern Indiana as a Fulbright student. This is my honor to be part of this colloquium. This is already second time for me to participate in this colloquium, and I'm always excited to share the research and knowledge I'm gathering here at USI. This time I will present the paper I worked on spring 2019 when I was in class communication and culture. Instructor is Dr. Stephanie Young, and we mostly we had conversations and discussions on popular culture and how what are the ways we can use to approach the popular culture we consume on a daily basis. It was January. I was back from winter break, and it seemed like the semester would be long and tough. I was browsing my Netflix account, as usually happens, and algorithm suggested me to see TV series Sex Education. I was using online dating applications at that time, and I was also working on the research which was about online dating applications. So this title was appealing for me as somebody who consumes a lot of popular culture on a daily basis, and also appealing for somebody who do some research in this online dating communication, sex talks and things like that. So I decided, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll watch this TV show and let's see what will. I was a little bit disappointed first time because there was a lot of explicit sex scenes and sex clips and moments, and I was like, if I want to see these clips, I know how to find and where to go. So I was a little disappointed, but then I still decided to watch it as far as I was working on another research, another qualitative project related to sex talks and things like topics like that. This TV series, it's the first season came out in January 2019. As I already mentioned, it has 8 episodes, sometimes more than 45 minutes each episode. And it's teen British TV series, teen comedy, where you will see a lot of topics related to puberty, adolescence, anxiety, sex education, peer pressure, cyberbullying, teen sexuality, and parent-child relationship, high school education, teacher student communication, but the biggest thing is parent-child communication when it comes to transitory stage, which is called puberty. So my question as a researcher was to identify the communication culture which exists in this TV show when it comes to conversation and talks about sexuality and sex, romantic relationships. So my research interest was to see and identify this type of talks, how it looks like, how it starts, how it's continues, and what are the consequences, how it looks like. Another topic I had in my mind when I approached this TV show as a researcher was peer pressure, which is related to usually like early high school period when teens and tweens start thinking about sexual relationships and their sexuality, their body, and they have sometimes misconceptions and misunderstandings of themselves and how they are perceived by others, and this is related to a lot of peer pressure and bullying. So these two topics is big two topics were in my mind when I approached this TV series as a critical researcher. The method I used for this, it's called closed textual analysis. It says a lot about itself. You choose text, and text can be anything related to popular culture. It can be movie, it can be text, it can be book or commercial, anything that has message. And you go there, you choose this text, and you try to closely analyze and observe some details. It can be conversations between conversations between characters, and some details, anything related to anything that carries message, right? So this is close textual analysis, and this is a famous. There is a famous phrase, Netflix and chill. I always say that when you are a critical researcher, and that's what my instructor, Dr. Young, taught us, is that you have to ruin your favorite TV show or movie or book, right? So as you approach text as a cultural critic and scholar, you are starting decomposing the text, and you're starting seeing messages that are hidden for the regular average viewer or audience, right? So you don't have this luxury to sit in a couch and chill, right? You are more critical, you have more critical lens. The book I used for methodology is Pursuing Popular Culture, Methods for Researching Every Day. Dr. Young, my instructor, is one of the authors of this book, and my recommendation, if you are into the popular culture, would be just go on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and you can access it and read and use it for your daily criticism. It's a really good book, not only for scholars, but for somebody who wants to be more who has more critic eyes, who wants to have more critic eyes, or just be more media literate. These are the 5 steps that are used when researchers approach text critically, when they apply close textual analysis. So you choose text, you take notes. Sometimes it takes double times rather than just watching it. Each episode, in my case, each episode was 45 minutes. It took me 2 hours for each episode to closely analyze each episode, conversations, details, characters, their personalities. I was taking notes, then I coded these notes and just tried to see big patterns, right? And then I made connection between theories in other research and general communication theories, popular cultural theories, and my data and my notes, which I took. And what's your final result? So the final result is to show audience or interested also others, your friends or scholarly audience, scholarly circles, to show some details that are hidden for regular viewers, right? So you uncover some details that has powerful message, and that is hard to notice when you sit in your couch and watch it, and the only reason is entertainment, right? So this is a final goal of close textual analysis. 3 major questions I asked: how text communicates, why it seems to carry meanings it does, and what impact these ideas have on audience. Of course, sex education and my research on this TV series is not the first one. There are a lot of research papers related to teen comedies and popular culture. And teen comedy, this is a genre where film productions or popular culture creators, they emphasize the topics, and they focus on topics that are related to teen problems or adolescence, this transitory stage and things like that. So the concept of teenager itself, this is one of the major topic in research papers that are written by other scholars. So I will talk about more about the concept and term teenager a little bit later. I will talk about sex edutainment as one of the important part of academic research when it comes to teen comedy and teen comedy. Parent-child conversation. This is one of the biggest topic in research, and sexual hegemony. As I told you, there are a lot of body of research that touches this topic, how teens are represented in popular culture. And we see that usually when we watch and when we see teen comedies and teen-related movies or TV series or commercials or books, we see that teens are in the period of transition. This is the coming of age when they are transitioning from childhood to adulthood. A lot of changes, biological, mental changes are going on in their brain, they have these physical changes, and these changes are visible. So it's a period of hormonal rage, and it's a really tough period for them. So usually when we see popular cultural products and teens in this popular culture, they are represented as somebody who experienced this transition from one stage to another. Another topic is sex edutainment. We see that researchers emphasize that because of the lack of adequate conversation between parents and children, or adequate education at school, sex education at school, popular culture and popular sources are primary source for adults to see information and to emphasize, to find information about their sexuality, about their body, which is already a problem. Because if somebody types and goes to YouTube or Google to find some sex-related topics, we know what may happen, right? So there is a possibility he or she ends up with an inappropriate site, so this is a problem. There is a research related to YouTube channels, which is dedicated to, and these channels are dedicated specifically to sexual education. These are popular sources, and we know that YouTube is a primary source of young generation, right? Netflix has importance. Netflix is very popular among young generation, and there is a survey I indicated in my references. There's a survey where teens say that Netflix and binge watching in general is escaping from their everyday life and transforming in other people's life, in this case in other film characters' life, where they see themselves from their perspective, and this affects their belief system and their perceptions about themselves and others. One problematic point I want to make here, Mayer is famous in terms of researching teen comedy and teen-related movies or films, and she talks about that usually in popular culture, teens are represented as heterosexual individuals, which is a problem because we know that we also have homosexual teenagers, and if we see them, and rarely see them, but if we see them, they are usually represented in their transitory stage, which means that this is not homosexuality. This is just transitory stage, and it's not about being homosexual. So this is one problematic point and gap in research that is indicated in research literature. Parent-child conversation, important topic. Researchers emphasize that and usually they conduct some surveys with young population and teenagers admit that the conversations and talks that are initiated, and if initiated by parents, they are mostly like lecture type, and the parents are never ready to listen to them. So they are lecturing, they are engaged, they are they lecture them not and less listen, and usually these talks are underdeveloped. So researchers also emphasize that it's important the quality of conversations between parent and child rather than quantity of conversation. And the idea of communicated sense making is famous in family communication field because communicated sense making, this is all about the holistic understanding and approach to talk and conversation between family members, especially parent and child. Holistic storytelling is when you bring core points and it's relatable and it's not just really like a general stories, right? So it's very it makes sense. So the communicating sense making is another theoretical approach that is used to approach teen and family comedies. Sexual hegemony. We know Antonio Gramsci and the idea of hegemony, cultural hegemony. So I decided to bring cultural hegemony here because peer pressure, I already mentioned, it's a big deal. If you see this TV series, you will see that teenagers are bullied because of the lack of experience in sexual relationship, and they are called as weird and less progressive if they don't have sexual experience, if they don't have sexual partners, and if they finish high school without losing virginity. So this idea of losing virginity becomes somehow the elitist hegemony ideology among adults, not adults, but teenagers, that I've noticed that it's quite a lot. It's represented in this TV series. I'll go and talk about the major findings in my research. I already mentioned several times this hegemonic idea, obsession with sex, and this a small quote, not really small quote, is a really good example of this idea of sexual obsession. Otis and Lily, they are protagonists of this TV series. Otis and Lily talk about in this quote, especially this quote, there is a conversation that, so Lily is asking that she wants to have a sex because if she doesn't have a sex, she will never have it. If she doesn't have a sex in high school, she will graduate high school virgin, she will never have a sexual partner in college, and everybody calls her weird and stupid and less cool kid. And Otis says that, but you skip important part here. And I will just read his response to Lily's concerns. Otis says, look, I knew it feels like everyone is doing it. And yeah, some people are, but most of us aren't yet. It's not a race. So this idea is that having a sex is a competition. It's a race. You will see this topic and this idea quite a lot in this TV series. Peer pressure and cyberbullying. Again, because of the hegemonic presence of this idea that you should lose your virginity while you are in high school, ends up in a lot of unprotected sexual experiences and practices, illegal abortions, low awareness of body and sexuality, cyberbullying, public shaming, and leaking personal information. There is a very important point. So Maeve, you see her on the screen right now. Maeve, she's engaged in multiple sexual acts. So she has multiple sexual partners. She ends up with abortion in early age, but she doesn't know how her vagina even looks like. So this is a big paradox. So she is engaged in sexual acts and sexual relationships, but she doesn't know her body as a woman. So it's a big deal. It's another interesting point that is shown in this TV series. Sex clinic at school. I like this. I brought this idea here because it's important. Who are behind sex clinic at school? teenagers. They support each other, they share their stories each other just because they don't receive adequate and appropriate support from family or at school. Of course, this is it has a lot of consequences because teenagers don't know a lot of things about themselves and sexuality, and sex. The representation of sex clinic in this TV series, it means that friends and teenagers, they are the primary sources for each other when it comes to sexual experiences and sex education. Parent-child conversation. These three pictures show that from the TV series show that this conversation and communication is unsuccessful. Parents are from other side, one side, and teenagers are from another side. And this, the idea of spider parents is brought by one of the protagonists of this TV series, Otis. He has a conversation with his mother, Jean. Jean is a middle-aged woman. She's a sex professional, sex therapist, and besides that, notwithstanding that, she cannot help herself to engage and to interfere in her son's life and privacy. And Otis is mad at her, and he says that you're like Spider Mom. You never let me to leave your network, which is typical representation of parents nowadays and in general. I know I've been talking a lot about this TV series, and I will try to be very concise and short in conclusion. All the ideas I already mentioned are part of my conclusion. In this specific TV series, we see that which we already knew these ideas, but in this TV series, we again see that in early adulthood, tweens and teens experience immense peer pressure regarding the must-have sexual experience. As we see in this TV series, it's weird and embarrassing to be a virgin in high school. Usually parents don't listen, they lecture and never leave children's private space. Due to the lack of adequate sex knowledge, teenagers harm their mental and physical well-being. And what's most important, like good sex therapy, sex education requires responsibility, listening, and respecting privacy. In this TV series, we see that both, especially parents and school, and then kids, teenagers, they violate these principles of successful sex education or sex therapy. I don't want to be like a lecturer, and I don't want to send some messages or teach you something, but when I finished watching this TV series as a researcher, I made these three major points in my Facebook post, and I said, if you are a parent, talk to your kids about sex, their sexuality and body. If they come to you and ask questions, just be open. Don't avoid this conversation. But if they don't come, you know the time, and you need to go and talk to her or him about their sexuality and sexual experiences. If you are school administration representative, just keep in mind that sex education is more than just a curriculum guideline. It's not a physics class. It's not a literature or math class. It's more than curriculum guideline. If you're a teenager, just don't rush. It's okay to be a virgin before going to college. This is my major points here. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to this presentation. If you need to read the paper, if you are interested to read paper, just email me and I will send you the paper, or if you have any questions, we can always have these communications through email. If you're interested in TV series, just go and see on Netflix. It's on Netflix, and it's already 2 seasons available on Netflix, and second season just came out in January, and it's also very interesting. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer. Please be safe and stay positive. Thank you.